attorney offer that up publicly?
To me, her turning it down shows that it's not a money grab.
No, it shows that it's a bigger shake.
Once again, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. Like they just handled it wrong from the beginning, from the whole beginning.
Yeah, well.
The Shannon Sharpe saga is unfolding like a slow-motion car crash, and every new revelation feels more shocking than the last. This isn't just about a hall of famer-turned-media darling facing a couple of lawsuits. This is a full-blown implosion of a public image that's been carefully crafted for decades. The man who built his brand on charisma, charm, and a larger-than-life personality is now being dragged into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons, and the details are jaw-dropping.
And that the sex was about handcuffs, choking, putting on dog collars.
Do you get those at pet?
Let's start with the leaked audio because that's where the scandal really caught fire. Imagine the scene. A woman accusing Shannon of manipulating her, and his response, a chilling threat to choke the life out of her if she dared to say the word manipulate again. The tone in his voice wasn't playful. It wasn't sarcastic. It was intense, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. And when the woman nervously said she didn't want to be choked, his response was even more disturbing. Yes, you do. I don't think you have a choice in the matter. Let that sink in. This isn't some throwaway argument. This is a conversation dripping with tension, power dynamics, and a level of control that's hard to stomach. But the audio is just one piece of the puzzle. The text messages that followed painted an even darker picture of a relationship that was anything but ordinary. These weren't sweet nothings or romantic gestures. They were explicit, domineering, and downright bizarre. One message, allegedly from Shannon's accuser, demanded he put a collar around her neck and suggested punishments that were far from affectionate. And while Shannon's legal team tried to spin these texts as evidence of consensual role-playing, the public wasn't buying it. Why? Because context matters, and when you combine those messages with the audio, a troubling pattern starts to emerge.
On Easter Sunday, a lawsuit was filed in state court in Nevada against Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe because he has become such a massive media star, especially in the past few years. The lawsuit is going to attract a lot of attention.
And then there's the accuser's lawyer, Tony Busby, a man known for taking on high-profile cases against some of the most powerful figures in sports and entertainment. Busby didn't just release the audio to make a splash. He's building a narrative of control, manipulation, and abuse that goes far beyond one phone call or a few text exchanges. He's claiming that Shannon's behavior wasn't just inappropriate, it was dangerous. And while Shannon's camp is pushing back hard, calling this a shakedown and accusing Busby of fabricating a narrative, the damage is already done. The court of public opinion is a brutal one, and Shannon's reputation is taking hit after hit.
Unlike the Deshaun Watson cases where there were 20-plus plaintiffs and they weren't really sure who the people were who were making the claims, in this case, Shannon Sharpe knows exactly who it is because there had been, and it's clear from the statement issued by his lawyer, Lanny Davis, there had been some pre-litigation efforts.
But what makes the story even more explosive is the history that's now coming to light. This isn't the first time Shannon's name has been linked to allegations of misconduct. In fact, there's a trail of accusations stretching back years, and they paint a picture of a man who may have been skating on thin ice for far too long. Take the claims from Michelle Evans, for example. She's accused Shannon of assaulting her during their relationship, and her story is eerily similar to what this new accuser is saying. Evans didn't just allege physical violence. She described a pattern of controlling and aggressive behavior that left her feeling trapped and terrified. And while Shannon's team has dismissed her as a disgruntled ex looking for attention, the similarities between her claims and the current lawsuit are impossible to ignore. Let's not forget the incident at F-Zone, where Shannon was accused of choking a production assistant. The network quickly settled the matter behind closed doors, but the whispers never stopped. Was it just playful roughhousing, as Shannon's team claimed, or was it something more sinister? The fact that Fox resolved it so quietly raises more questions than answers, and now those questions are resurfacing with a vengeance. Add to that the allegations from Evans about Shannon allegedly threatening her after she filed a restraining order, and you start to see a pattern of behavior that's hard to dismiss as coincidence.
Social media want everything to happen immediately.
Absolutely.
Like, it's only Thursday.
It's instant. They want everything to instantly happen. It doesn't work like that.
The righteous people on Reddit, baby, they are dissecting and divulging right now, and they are...
And then there's the public reaction, which has been nothing short of a firestorm. Social media is ablaze with opinions, theories, and outrage. Fans who once idolized Shannon are now questioning everything they thought they knew about him. Some are standing by him, arguing that this is all a setup designed to take down a successful, powerful man. But others are turning on him, pointing out that the leaked audio and text don't just raise red flags. They set off alarm bells. And while Shannon supporters argue that his accuser is just looking for a payday, the sheer volume of allegations and the intensity of the evidence make that defense harder and harder to believe.
About the lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe. Now, this one has some very strong allegations. Assault, battery, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The components obviously give it greater gravity than a car accident or any case based on some sort of negligent slip and fall, something like that where someone was just being...
Even Shannon's own lawyer seemed to fumble the ball when he admitted the leaked audio was real, but tried to frame it as part of consensual role-playing. That explanation might hold up in a courtroom, but in the court of public opinion, it fell flat. People aren't just questioning Shannon's actions, they're questioning his character. How could someone who's built a career on being likable, relatable, and trustworthy find himself at the center of such a massive scandal? And if these allegations are true, what does that say about the man behind the persona?
Well, in other news, Shannon Sharpe. So you guys remember that video that Shannon Sharpe was saying was going to release?
Yes,
That
it did.
No.
Oh.
What's even more shocking is how this scandal is affecting Shannon's career. ESPN has already pushed him to step back from his duties, and insiders are saying he might not return at all. The network is fighting to protect its own reputation, and Shannon is starting to look like a liability they can't afford. Even his $100 million media deal, which was supposed to be the crowning achievement of his post-NFL career, is now hanging by a thread. The timing of the lawsuit couldn't be worse, or more suspicious, depending on who you believe. Was the deal leaked to deflate Shannon's value and derail the settlement negotiations? Or was it simply a coincidence that the lawsuit dropped just days after the deal was announced? Either way, it's clear that Shannon's once bright future is now clouded by controversy. And let's not overlook the cultural and racial dynamics at play here. Shannon has long been a polarizing figure, not just for his outspoken personality, but for the way he's navigated issues of race and identity in the public eye. The leaked audio and texts, with their explicit references to dominance and control, have sparked a broader conversation about power dynamics, gender, and race. And while Shannon's legal team is trying to focus on the legal battle, the cultural fallout is just as significant. This isn't just about one man's mistakes. It's about the systems that allow those mistakes to go unchecked until they explode into public view.
But Tony Busby says this is key evidence in our case against Mr. Sharpe, so it will not be coming out. He will not be leaking this.
And saying basically it's going to come out during the trial.
Right.
If there's a trial.
If there's a trial, it will come out, which to me sounds like he's still dangling it over Shannon's head to say, we can meet, we can settle this, or we can go forward into a trial and then the video is going to come out. Now,
but perhaps the most unsettling part of this whole saga is the sense that we're only scratching the surface. For every piece of evidence that's come to light, there are whispers of more to come. More audio, more texts, more allegations. And while Shannon's team is scrambling to control the narrative, it's clear that this story is far from over. The question isn't just whether Shannon will survive this scandal, it's how much more will be revealed before the dust finally settles. And just when you think it can't get messier, it does. Because behind the public spectacle, there's another layer to this unfolding disaster, a tangled web of legal strategies, power plays, and the brutal game of reputation management. Shannon Sharpe isn't just fighting for his career, he's fighting for his identity. And the moves being made on both sides are as calculated as they are shocking.
It's a claim against someone alleging that some rights were violated, and in most cases, what's sought is compensation in the form of damages to make up for whatever it is the person did. And there are all sorts of civil lawsuits, car accidents, defamation. We hear about that a lot because people get sued about things that are said about them in media.
Let's start with the so-called role-playing defense. Shannon's legal team has leaned hard into this narrative, painting the accuser's claims as an exaggerated fallout from a consensual but unconventional relationship. But here's the thing. The moment audio leaks of someone making threats, no matter the context, the court of public opinion doesn't care about your explanations. It's visceral, it's raw, and it's impossible to unhear. And yet, that's exactly what Shannon's lawyers are banking on, that they can convince people to separate the man from the moment, to buy into the idea that this was all a misunderstanding blown wildly out of proportion. But does that strategy hold water when the accuser's attorney, Tony Busby, is out there dropping bombshells left and right?
Essence from Atlanta, him refusing to look at the evidence just gives me the impression that he wants plausible deniability, and maybe the evidence should be released so that way he does not deny his actions. I mean, if that was me, I would definitely want to look at the evidence to see what I did and did not do so I can maintain my innocence.
Busby isn't just aiming to win a lawsuit. He's aiming to dismantle Shannon's entire defense, piece by piece. The audio was just the opening salvo. Behind the scenes, there's talk of more evidence, more recordings, more recordings, more recordings, more messages, more receipts. And while Shannon's team scrambles to control the damage, Busby is playing a different game entirely. He's not just attacking the actions, he's going after the mindset. His argument is simple. This isn't about a single incident or a misunderstanding. This is about a pattern of behavior, one that allegedly stretches back years and has left a trail of broken trust and damaged lives in its wake.
Their regular routine was that Shannon then they would.
Why was that relevant?
And speaking of patterns, let's talk about the timeline. Because as new details emerge, they raise even more questions about how deep this rabbit hole really goes. For instance, the allegations from Shannon's past that have been quietly resurfacing aren't just inconvenient, they're damning. The accusations of workplace misconduct at F-Zone, the claims of controlling behavior from former partners, and even whispers of settlements that never saw the light of day, all of it paints a picture that's hard to ignore. And while Shannon's team is quick to dismiss these as unrelated or irrelevant, the sheer volume of stories makes it harder and harder to believe this is all just a coincidence.
Yes, and another interesting thing too, and this is why I said, I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. After this came out, we would have never known about that so-called video if it wasn't for Shannon Sharpe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shannon jumped out there and revealed that video existed. And he did that for no reason because they wasn't even planning on putting it up.
What's even more striking is the way Shannon himself is handling the fallout, or failing to, depending on how you look at it. His public statements have been defiant, almost combative, as if doubling down on his innocence will somehow make the allegations disappear. But behind the scenes, there are rumors of desperation, mediation meetings that fell apart, settlement offers that were rejected, and whispers that were rejected, and whispers, unconfirmed but impossible to ignore, that Shannon was willing to pay a staggering amount to make this all go away. If true, it raises a chilling question. What wouldn't he want coming out in court?
Right, and now, a lot of times people just are who they are. And you're looking at Shannon, his brand has never really been anything that said he might not be into some of the things that we're learning, right? You could go back to the IG Live, or you could listen to some of the things that he promotes as sponsors of his show, or just certain ways he talks about women.
And then there's the media circus. Shannon's every move is being dissected and debated, not just by fans, but by his peers in the industry. Take Ryan Clark, for example. His thinly veiled comments about Shannon's reputation have only fueled speculation, with many wondering just how much the sports world has been quietly tolerating for years. And Clark isn't alone. Other former colleagues and insiders have started to speak out, some defending Shannon, but many others hinting at a history of behavior that was, at best, problematic and, at worst, deeply troubling.
Right, and like I say, people are gonna feel how they feel about the age gap and what that means to them, right? My preference isn't that. If I have, and I do have a 20-year-old daughter, my preference for her, my advice to her, the things that I will and will not be comfortable with for her aren't that, right? I wouldn't be comfortable with my daughter who is 20 dating someone his age, but that's also...
But perhaps the most damning part of all this is how it's affecting Shannon's carefully curated public persona. For years, he's built his brand on being the loud, confident, and unapologetically honest voice of sports commentary. His podcasts, his social media presence, even his on-air banter. It all painted a picture of a man who was larger than life, someone who didn't just comment on the game but owned the conversation. And now, that image is crumbling. The same charisma that once made him a fan favorite is starting to look more like arrogance. The same confidence that made his commentary so compelling now comes across as deflection. And as more people dig into his past, it's becoming clear that the man behind the mic might not be the man fans thought they knew.
Tied into some of the things he is being charged with, accused with, or has allegedly done, no man wants to be associated with those things that's not his intent and that's not his heart. And so my biggest thing for him is, if these aren't actions that are of him, I hope that he's cleared of them.
What's worse, every attempt at damage control seems to backfire spectacularly. Take the leaked texts, for example. Shannon's team released them to prove the relationship was consensual, but instead, they became a lightning rod for criticism. The explicit language, the power dynamics, the sheer absurdity of some of the messages, it all felt less like a defense and more like a confession. And while Shannon's lawyers argue that this was just two consenting adults engaging in private conversations, critics are pointing out the glaring imbalance in age, power, and context. Because let's be real, it's hard to frame yourself as the victim when you're the one holding all the cards. And yet, despite everything, Shannon isn't stepping back quietly. If anything, he's doubling down. His social media posts have been defiant, almost taunting. He's accused his accuser of a coordinated smear campaign, calling out Busby by name and daring him to release more evidence. It's a bold move, to say the least, but one that could easily backfire. Because if there's one thing we've learned from scandals like this, it's that the truth has a way of coming out. Whether you're ready for it or not, Meanwhile, the ripple effects are spreading far beyond Shannon himself. ESPN is reportedly in crisis mode, scrambling to distance itself from the controversy without alienating Shannon's fan base. Sponsors are quietly reassessing their partnerships, and other media figures are starting to speak out, drawing parallels between Shannon's case and other high-profile scandals that have rocked the industry in recent years. It's a reminder that this isn't just about one man's mistakes, it's about the culture that enabled them.
Right. And then for the young lady, if these are things that has happened to her, you hope that she's able to process that and in some way feel like she has been not only compensated, but that she has sought and found the justice that she's looking for. But it's like you said, period. It's just a bad look.
But perhaps the most unsettling part of all this is the sense that we're still only scratching the surface. Every day seems to bring a new twist, a new revelation, a new piece of the puzzle. And as Shannon's legal battles heat up, it's clear that the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about money or reputation, it's about legacy. And for a man who's spent his entire career building a brand that's larger than life, the prospect of losing it all must be terrifying. So where does that leave us? With more questions than answers. For starters, is Shannon the victim of a calculated smear campaign, or is this the reckoning he's been dodging for years? How much more evidence is out there, and how far will both sides go to either reveal or suppress it? And perhaps most importantly, what does all of this say about the world of sports and entertainment, where charisma and talent often overshadow accountability? Let us know what you think down below. Is Shannon Sharpe fighting for his innocence, or is this just the beginning of his downfall? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.